coined that expression, what makes beautiful work.
Yeah.
And I think one of the struggles that we sometimes have with teachers is really understanding that they have to push the kids to achieve higher than perhaps they would have expected. So how do you kind of work through that? Is it about establishing a model at the beginning, so you've got some assessment criteria of what a great piece of work looks like?
I do think so. I am a big fan of models of work, and I know that there is great concern that if you show kids models of work that they'll just copy them and that they won't be creative and individual. And I think that's crazy. That's like saying we'll never have kids listen to great music because they might copy it. Well, how will they know what great music is if they never heard it? I think they have to see great work, and then they get inspired to do great work. And all great writers read great literature before they became great writers. That's how they became great writers. So we shouldn't be scared to show kids great work. Eventually, when teachers have been doing this for a while, they have a whole archive of great work from past years that they can show to get students thinking about quality. But even before that, they can lean on getting models from the professional world or from other students or other schools to say this is where we might start. And I think we use rubrics a lot in education. We define the dimensions of what a good piece of work is. And for most students and teachers, those rubrics are just a set of words. They create no picture in your mind of what great thing. It's like if you created a rubric of what a great gymnastic or athletic piece was, it would be a list of words. You could use it for a scoring if you were a judge. But if you had never seen that event, if you had never seen that sport being played or that gymnastic vault being done, you read a bunch of words, you have no idea what it looks like until you actually see someone doing it. And then you think, oh, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're aiming for. That beautiful athletic event, that vault, that thing, that's what these tell me how to judge it, but it's the picture of it I need. Same thing with a great essay, same thing with a great mathematical solution, same thing with a great scientific paper. You need to see a great scientific paper to understand what one is.
And you talked about in Ethic of Excellence, you talk about be your own archivist and develop that archive of great work. In my experience, teachers are just not used to doing that.
Not at all. David, I share this story often of, I went into a classroom of a very good physics teacher. So teaching kids in 12th, 13th year. And I watched her teach. I thought she was really a great teacher and students were engaged. And I said, how do you want help from me? You're doing great. I love the work your students are doing. She said their lab reports are terrible. They're always terrible. And I said, is that just this year? She said, no, every year. They write terrible lab reports. And I get them and I write feedback on them and I give them back and they're not, they just. And I said, have you ever showed them a model of a great lab report? She said, no, I don't get any. And I pushed her on it, and she said, well, yeah, I have this one student, she's brilliant, she does great, but she's just she's an exception. So I said, do you have her portfolios? She said, oh, I have all of her stuff here, and we looked through it, and I said, pick the best. So she picked one lab report that was really beautifully done, and the student's still in the school, we found her. Said, do we mind if we use yours as a model? She said, no, of course, that's great. I'm honored. And we crossed out her name and photocopied it. And the next class that came in, we led a lesson where everyone looked at that lab report and analyzed its strengths and weaknesses. And the students were amazed by how beautiful and articulate and thorough and thoughtful it was compared to what they'd usually been doing. And they said, oh my God, ours are terrible compared to this. And one of the boys looked at the teacher and said, is this what you had wanted us to do? And she said, yeah. And he said, why didn't you show us this in September?
Yeah.
I was like, and I thought, here's a really great, brilliant teacher, and yet it hadn't occurred to her to show them a model. She had been critiquing them, but they hadn't really seen what they were aiming for.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, okay, this is what you want. This amount of depth, this amount of thoroughness, this carefulness with scientific language. I think we should all be collecting models. Most teachers use the same formats year after year. They use essays or lab reports or geometric proofs, but they don't have an archive of great ones.
Yeah.
And so,
And you also, I know the last time I was at Tanti, Ben Daly said you challenged them over, they show the final work, but they don't show how the student got to
the
that.
drafts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't show the learning in progress.
Yeah.
Of course, that's a lot of stuff that you, as a teacher, you've got to keep. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that seems to be really important, that students and parents can actually see the stages of the journey.
Exactly. And if you have structures, which in EL we use, and I'm sure you use it a lot in the UK, where students have to present their work formally to their families or to panels, you want those students to have multiple drafts of their work to say, this is where I started, this is where, this is my story, so that they can talk about their learning process, not just their final piece. The other thing is that there's often a great suspicion when students do really high quality work of it wasn't really your work, right? I mean, you got some help, but we didn't see it, so we don't trust it. It's not on demand like an exam, because an exam you're sitting alone and no one can talk to you, so we only trust that. But if you did it with your peers, then we can't trust anything about it, because who knows what they gave you. It's very different when you have a set of drafts. When the learning that you did is explicit, you can see the student's progress through their drafts. You think, you might have gotten some help, but you made amazing progress in that, and there's real evidence.